Hey guys, here we are, the Quick It Out MMA podcast, and joining me tonight is someone who's in the same boat as me, someone who's been doing this for over a decade, the one and only Adam Martin. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here with you on this fine Tuesday evening. Glad to be here, man. I know you've been trying to get me on for a couple weeks now, so I'm glad to be here, bro. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, and we've been jumping right into it. We've been keeping you busy because I know about a week ago, you had put up a tweet that talked about, hey, some of the sites I'm working with kind of dropped off. If anybody's looking for help. And then I started to see, like, I think it was the next day, if not even sooner, you got picked up by another place. So talk about the outpouring of the MMA community and how that really, like, affected you personally, because it really shows how in tune we really are.
That's a great point. Man, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know firsthand that a lot of the gigs in this business are, they don't last forever. So I always enjoy wherever I am for as long as I am there. And it's not like I want to jump ship all the time, and I have it for some places. I've been with them for a while, but I'm going to be a father in a few months, and I'm just like freaking out, man. I'm like, holy shit! I'm going to be a dad, and I'm also getting married too. So I'm like, dude, I need to start making some more money.
Well, congrats to both. That's pretty exciting, man.
Thanks, man. So like that's just motivating the hell out of me right now, because I'm like I got another mouth, actually two more mouths to feed. So. Yeah, I mean, for me, that's like the motivation. Really, like it really is motivating. Like it's not like I wasn't motivated before because I already was. But put that tweet out last week because honestly, man, like I'm a very private guy. You know what I mean? Like I like to do these, like especially with work. I like to do it through the back channels if I can.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys looking for work? I mean, really, that's how you get a job these days. You have to know someone. I mean, it's the truth. Actually, that's how it's been for a long time. Even with like I have a degree. I don't think it's funny. I've been in journalism for almost 10 years. I don't think anyone's ever actually asked to see my degree. I'm like, why don't you even go? But
hey, I have a bachelor's in psych, so trust me.
There you go. I have a bachelor's in history, and then I went to school for journalism, and like I haven't used that stuff. Like, the journalism stuff says for itself, but the history, no. Anyways, I put the tweet out and got some positive feedback like right away, which was nice, and a lot of people were sharing it too, like fighters too, which was cool, and like some managers and stuff. Like it wasn't just like. Guys like me and you who are like cool, like guys, and we're trying to help each other, which is always great. But it was like people that had some more connections than me, which was good. And I've had a few like, people hit me up, and I did grab a couple. Like I grabbed one gig so far, and there's one I'm talking about right now, and hopefully I can announce that soon. If I get this gig, it'd be a great thing for me. So I'm hoping it can work out. We're talking right now, and it was nice, man. It was cool to see like people like. Try to help a decent guy. Like I feel like I'm, I'm pretty respectful of people on social media and stuff. Like I never really asked for anything, so I'm like, can you guys give me a hand here? Because, bro, it's a very tough industry, as you know, and I work as much as I can already, but it's not enough, So I'm trying to get as much as I can. So that's kind of where it is. I hate making a story about myself. We were always taught that in journalism school. It's like it's not about you. That's the one thing I learned. No, I'm kidding. But it's like it's not about you. It's about the athletes that I'm covering. But in this particular case, I'm like, okay, guys, like I got to do something different because I started freaking out, bro. I was like, I don't want to go back to a normal job because I worked normal job my whole life, and it's like, and then I did the MMA thing, and then I went back to a normal job, and then I'm like, I need to give this MMA thing another shot. I've been doing that for a while now, right? And I'm like, I'm all in on this. So it just freaks me out because I don't want to go back to an office. I really don't want to sit in an office. And I've did it before, man. And for many years, and I don't want to do it again. So,
well, the irony is that my office is where I'm sitting right now. So
exactly,
but
exactly. No, I like the office being my bedroom. Like I'm used to it now. Like I've been freelancing for a while, so I'm very used to it. But I appreciate you asking, man. That's nice of you. It's like it's a very difficult business. Like I hope people realize that. Like a lot of businesses are, especially now. I get that, but in journalism, like there's never been a lot of jobs in this business.
Especially MMA.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always held out hope. Like we're all like that, especially guys like that are full time almost in this business. We're not full time, but we are like guys like me, where I'm not full time, but I work full time hours. Well more than that. And it's like these jobs at the big sites, they come up once every 5 years, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They never do. So it's like you got to piece it together and stuff. I'd actually really like to know more about you as well. I'm sure that your listeners already know everything about you, man. but I mean, I don't know a lot about you, so maybe you can give me the rundown on yourself.
Well, and I was gonna have you do the same after that, but I'm, turning
Perfect. That sounds great.
the journalism 101. I'll go back to my journalism teacher in college, Mr. Wyatrowski, who's gonna love hearing his voice on here, or his name on here. I remember like one of the first things we did in the class, because it was journalism 101, and it was like, take this news article, take a picture and rewrite it, or just rephrase it. And it was about a car accident, which is ironic, and I'll explain that later. But it was about a car accident, and it said he was thrown from the vehicle. Or I said he was ejected from the vehicle.
Okay.
And he started writing notes, and he said, "Oh, you can't write ejected." I said, "That sounds like he had an ejector seat," and he said, "You should have used thrown from." And I said, "But that implies that somebody threw him from the vehicle." And I remember just that one moment of us looking at each other like, all right, we're good. And, I still talk to him this day, and that was longer than I want to admit ago, but it kind of sparked my journalistic bug, so to speak. Everybody knows I didn't get into MMA until 2008. I never had any interest in it. I watched football. I played baseball for a couple years when I was a kid. Watched hockey every now and then. But my roommates were watching, Ultimate Fighter, and I think it was the Forrest Griffin and Rampage Jackson season. And I was like, this is all right. And then I caught a WEC wreckage, and it was Jose Aldo, Cub Swanson, and Uriah Faber, Mike Brown 2, which are probably two of the best fights you can watch because they're two different sides of the spectrum. And I'm like, oh, I think I really like this. So I watched a little bit more. And then I started working at Best Buy, and I met one of my best friends to this day, Nick, who's been on the show, I think, twice now. And he was like, "Oh, you like MMA?" He's like, "Come over to my house. We're going to watch Pride." I'm like, "What's Pride?"
Oh, man.
Dude, 6 hours at a time. We would just watch it, and he'd go, no, that fight's whack. That fight whack. No, you're going to watch this. Here, we'll show this again. And then, seeing guys like Igor Varchenchkin and Enson Inoue, who, conveniently enough, I had on the show, which was still blows my mind. And
holy shit, that's awesome, man.
And
that's
he was in Japan, so 13-hour time difference. I'm like, let's do it Saturday morning. He's like, yeah, that's fine with me. And then I'm like, wait, that's Friday at midnight okay. All right. We'll make it work. But I never expected to be in the media side of this. I started to love the sports 2009, and I picked up an Ultimate MMA magazine. And once I get involved in something, it just overtakes my life. I have to know everything about it. I have to know everything. And there was an article, and it said back at UFC 98 when Frank Mir took on Brock Lesnar the second time, and I went, no, that was UFC 100. I'm like, UFC 98 was, Evans versus Machida. So I did what any normal person would do. I emailed the editor and was like, hey, this is wrong. Sorry if this comes off, and you're laughing now because... And him and I emailed back and forth for 2 hours. And he said, you seem to know what you're talking about. Would you like to write a blog? And at this point, I'm in the sport about a year and a half. And I was like, cool. And he goes, we can't pay you. And I said, I don't care. You and I both know that is the phrase that comes up it's like, hey, how you doing? We can't pay you. Nice to meet you.
I'll talk about my experience with that. Don't worry.
So I started doing that. And, I got to about 6 months in and I said, I'd really like something in print because I was doing everything online. And it was a Tuesday night, and they said, we'll have something to us by Thursday. And I'm like, you'll have something tonight. And I wrote back in the day about how Carlos Condit would be the hardest fight for GSP. And it was a little column, maybe a tenth of the page. And I just remember being like, I made it. I've done it. And then I got to, interview Liz Carmouche. She was the first fighter I ever interviewed. And I got a full page, and I was like, my mind was blown. Because at that point, it was like, this isn't just, I'm not trying to, build myself up, but I'm not just kind of good at this. I found a home for this creative outlet. And I did that for the next 4 years, and then all of a sudden the magazine just went gone. And I was like, I don't, I took a couple months off. I had Combat Press reach out to me in August of 2014. They said, hey, we're looking for writers. We've seen some of your stuff. If you're interested, send over some of your pieces. I sent them like 5 or 6 things, and they said, welcome to the team.
Awesome.
And I've been with them ever since. So it's, the podcast, like I said, we weren't going to talk about COVID, but because of working from home, I've got the office space now, and I said, you know what, I did a couple episodes of the podcast in person. Like I was bringing my 17-inch gaming laptop to Dunkin' Donuts to interview fighters, which I always thought they always pick the place. And
Where do you live again? Florida or something?
Yeah, I'm in Tampa.
Okay. So that's not far from like ATT and stuff?
ATT is about 4 hours from me.
Or like, what's the home gym there? It'd be like where Quarantillo and those guys train? Is that...
Oh, gosh.
Avila and those guys? That's who...
Yeah, Gracie, GTS, so Gracie Tampa South.
So. Yeah.
I mean, there's 100 Gracie schools around here, and they're all super cool guys. I mean, you've got Rob Kahn running Gracie HQ. You've got Matt Arroyo. You've got Bamboo. You've got Ben Sabat. There's so many dudes who I've gotten to meet over the years, and really, I love doing this. This isn't my day job, and I'd like it to be, but it's not.
What do you do? What do you do?
I do insurance claims.
Oh, exciting.
Listen, man, it's actually not that bad, and it
bills too, right?
And it allows me to do this.
Dude, that's what I'm saying, bro. I don't like, and I have worked normal jobs like my whole life. That's why I like busted my ass in school, because I was like, I worked at Home Depot when I was in school, and I'm like, I saw the people there, and I'm nothing against them, but they were like 40 years old and working for minimum wage, and that was like their, that's their career. Their goal was to get a full-time job there. Like, they weren't even full-time, and I'm like, you gotta do something with your life, man, because you can do this if you want, and it's fun, it's easy. I had a lot of friends there, but I'm like, you gotta really bust your ass. But dude, I mean, like, for everything you said, man, you sound like beyond motivated too, which is awesome. Hey, I was gonna ask, what's your favorite part of it? Is it talking to the fighters? Because it seems like you like that, eh?
Eh? I think you're my first Canadian guest. I do.
North.
I'm from the South, where we don't count as the South, even though everything above us is considered the South. So I don't ever understand that. But
is there snow outside? There's no snow. Right?
No, it hasn't snowed in Florida since this part of Florida since the 70s.
It's probably been snowing for about 3 months now. I'm like, I don't even want to go outside. I hate the winter here, man.
Dude, it's 80 degrees outside.
I hate you.
but
yeah, is it talking to the fighters then?
It's getting the stories and really building the relationships, because for so long, I watched a lot of the top guys, and I based what I was doing off of what was acceptable in the industry. Because in the industry, there were some unwritten rules, and if anybody doesn't know, you've been around long enough, it was, you don't make friends with fighters, you don't take pictures with fighters, and I mean, I'll go grab a credential right now. On the back of it, it says no pictures, no autographs. You're not supposed to be doing any of that stuff. And I kept that way for a long time until I found Dwayne Finley's work. And I started to read Dwayne's stuff, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, he's being friendly, and he's getting the best stories, and his writing just blew me away. And it's one of those things where there's not a lot of jobs that you can do where you can meet your idols, have those idols be your friends, have those idols randomly text you about a movie they're watching, and that it's been that way with Dwayne, which I think is the coolest thing. Getting to do the podcast, I've had Esther Lynn on the show, Ryan Loco, Phil Lambert from our Combat Press, guys that I really hadn't met, or people I hadn't met, but it was lucky enough to be like, I admire these people, I love their work, and this just gets me to hang out with them for an hour and do this. So for me, I love getting to the root of a fighter. It's always great to get the backstory, but backstories have been told over and over and over again. And I think you'll probably agree with this, it's kind of hard to interview somebody twice in a short period of time. Because you feel like, all right, I had 50 talking points in your head, and then the next time you're like, now I've got to kind of off the cuff. And I used to do that. I used to have a list of questions that I would ask during every interview. And I threw it away one day.
Good.
and I just ran with it, and it changed everything. So,
Dude, that's good. That's good. You gotta just like flow with it, right? And sounds like you know what you're doing, man. And the fighters respect you. It sounds like too. That's the most important thing, right?
it is, and I learned that too. Is that sometimes you have to write, about their losses. Sometimes you have to write about something controversial that happened outside. We'll keep it at that. But
Yeah.
not to make light of any situation, but
I know we're not talking about anything.
no, anything in particular. But for you, like, how did you get started, and when did you start? Because, like I said, I'm pretty sure you and I are pretty close in that tenure, where MMA just kind of brings us back in. Anytime I think about walking away, I just can't do it. I just can't.
Yeah, dude, bang on, man. That's exactly how I feel. I've been doing this for 10 years now, since 2011. I just had the Facebook memory pop up. It was the first press conference I ever went to. UFC 129.
Yeah, with Shields and GSP.
First one ever in Ontario. That's when I actually, so I went to school and graduated in 2010 from university.
Mm-hmm.
2011, I went back for journalism. That was the same year the UFC was happening, like getting more accepted, I think, in Canada especially.
Oh yeah.
And it's pretty much when I started to realize, hey, there's an opportunity here to cover this sport. Because growing up, I wasn't really a fan of the sport. Not that I had a ton of interest in it as a younger guy. I loved wrestling growing up, man. Like I was a WCW,
dude.
ECW.
Sting was my dude.
You too? You too?
Yeah.
How old are you? I'm 32. So how old are you? You're probably older than me, right? Or
I'm 32.
Oh, you're 32. Perfect. There you go. So growing up, man, like that's what we watched. Like I grew up watching WCW. Like I love that stuff, and I heard about because especially WWF. Ken Shamrock was in it, obviously.
Yeah.
So they had talked about the Lion's Den, and they had joked about like how he was like an ultimate fighter. And I remember asking my dad, like,
"What is this?"
I'm like, I'm 10 years old, right? I'm like, "What's an ultimate fighter?" He's like, "Oh, you can't watch that. It's too violent." He used to go to the guy's house across the street from me and watch the pay-per-views every Saturday night. I'd be like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just going to Steve's house." I'm like, "Why?" And then later on, I realized they watched all the UFCs together. And I actually went to a few boxing matches. I even saw the Tyson and Holyfield when he bit the ear off. I was like 10. I was with my dad watching.
God.
Great, like one of the first fights I can remember, especially with the controversy, right? So growing up, man, I thought I'd probably cover, like, I'm Canadian, right? So I thought I'd cover hockey probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even baseball. Like, I mean, the Blue Jays are huge here, obviously, right? So I didn't really know if I was going to be a journalist, but, I didn't want to be, like, I went to school and I knew I liked writing. I didn't really want to be a teacher or anything. I didn't really want to go in the academia route. So somehow the sports journalism thing kind of fell in my lap, and I've been running with it since, man. And I just remember telling myself, like, I want to do the MMA thing. And this was, like, in 2010. And then I went to school next year. My first job in the business was in 2011, and I was working for it was a television station here called The Score.
Yeah.
And I was there for a year, and it was great. Now, the guy who hired me, his name's Aaron Bronstetter. He's turned into like one of the biggest names.
Yeah.
And he had brought me in. He was like, he was actually, it's kind of like, there's like, he did a few different things, but basically he was doing the podcasting with Mauro Ranallo, who was ironically on TV today. The thing about, I don't like talking about Mauro because he did not treat me with any sort of respect at all as a young guy. He's not a nice guy, but I don't like to talk about it because it happened 10 years ago. He definitely abused me at work.
He blocked me on Twitter, and I look up to the dude.
Bro, he's a huge prick, but I'm not going to sit here and slag the guy because I've moved on from that, but he's just, he was a hard guy to work for, but I worked for Aaron too.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron he's still a good friend of mine to this day. So, that was my first job, man. And Mauro was doing the podcast. I would do his notes and I would help him with the podcast. And then I started doing some writing there, interviews, everything. Worked there for a year. And then I'm like, man, and I was 22 years old, right? So I'm like, this is my career here.
Yeah,
I love this job. Yeah. I saw UFC, Jones and Vitor Belfort. Like, I was there for covering that card. And I'm like, man, this is the job I always wanted, Like, I remember chilling. I went to Vinny Magalhaes' room and we chilled for like an hour and a half while he was cutting weight, and we were just shooting the shit. Like, it was awesome. I was like, I found my calling.
Yeah.
A month after that, that TV station got bought out by a bigger TV station, Sportsnet, which is like the biggest one here, one of the biggest ones in Canada. So my job got lost right away, and I remember waking up on Monday morning. Hey Adam, don't come in the office today. You know, your job is not. You know, you got fired basically. And I was like, shit. I was a kid, dude, and I had no idea. So imagine, and that was in October 2012. So the last 9 years, every day since then, I've woken up every day thinking I'm going to get another phone call that I'm going to get released from a job. You know, and it's a terrible way. And I've never really told people that. You know, it's true though, man, because that's why I always appreciate the work I have now for as long as it lasts. Because I know it doesn't always last that long. So I always appreciate if I'm there for a year or a month or whatever. Hopefully longer. But anyways, yeah. So I've been doing it since 2011. I love the sport, man. Really, like, again, you know, I could have picked any of them, and I liked MMA. But over the years, you know, after the score, I've been mostly freelancing for a bunch of different websites, and I did the betting. The betting thing's been, you know, something I've did as well. Focused on that side of the sport. It's been good. And then the last few years, I started working at PJ Penn 2 years ago now, and that really helped my career. I think getting that job, because man, it's like I always hope, bro. I gotta be honest, like especially when I was doing this business, because I was working with Morrow, I had connections to guys like Ariel and John Morgan and stuff. So I knew those guys like months into my career,
which is amazing to know.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, and we hung out, and I thought those guys would kind of help me. And I think it's just a hard business. And I'm not saying that, you know, they did anything negative, but it's like I always wanted to work with guys like that. I work at MMA Fighting or ESPN or MMA Junkie. Never had that opportunity. So, you know, I did my thing for all these years, and then the PJ Penn thing for the last 2 has been great because we have a lot more readership.
Yeah.
You know, like I've worked for a lot of small websites. Now we have a website where I'm getting people to actually read my stuff. So it feels like even though I've been in this business for 10 years, I feel like I'm finally starting to get some like notoriety a little bit, if anything, like a little bit more respect, if anything, which is nice, man. Because I've given 10 years of my life to this, and it really hasn't given me that much back financially, you know. And I've accepted that, but now it's starting to a little bit more, and I just love it. And I tried to walk away before. I did try to walk away. I went back to school for like a few months. I was like, I can't do this. I need to go back to MMA. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like this is my calling. You know, I love it, man. I really do. I just wish it was like as big as the NFL, where every city's got a writer. You know what I mean? It's just not like that.
No, and everything's changed. And it's people don't understand that, like, someone's gonna give me backlash for this statement. I know it's gonna happen. But people don't understand that the journalism side of MMA, while not as physically demanding, is definitely as mentally exhausting as fighting. Because you're getting paid little to nothing for most jobs. And that's no knock on anybody. Because
100%. I like that one right there. It's not. It's just that's just the way it is.
That's just how it is. I mean, if your name's not Ariel, Brett, James Lynch, you know, guys like that, who I would consider like the trio.
You know, James and me James is one of my best friends. We came up at the same time, you know. So and he's doing amazing for himself, which is great to see. But like me and him both came from like it's like the rags to riches, right? And he's really killing it now, which I love to see. You know, he's been in the bit. Actually, he's been in it just as long as you, since 2008, I think, or 2007. No one knew about him until like recently, like the last 5 years. Now he's like,
well, it's because he literally had to do something that no one should have to do in this business. I mean, you looked at a 7-day spread of what he did, and I know I'm still supposed to have him on the show, and he's gonna be like, "Really? You had Adam on before me?" But really, it'd be like a 7-day stroll. You Canadians are too nice. That's what it is.
I apologize for James. I'll be like, "Sorry, man."
But it'd be like this outlet, this outlet, this outlet, this outlet, and there'd be a different interview every single day. And I'm like, maybe he's stacking them. He's doing a couple a day, and I know now that's what he's trying to do. But it's like, I don't think anyone works harder than him. I firmly believe that in this industry now, and that includes Ariel and Brett, just because it's kind of like when they break news, it doesn't mean as much to me. Like, you and I know, like, scrounging for a source to trust us enough to let us break something once and we're happy.
Yep. Yep.
When the organization that you work for is letting you break the news, it kind of takes away from me. Nothing from them, but I'm like, at the same time, if Dana messaged me and it was like, hey, Quiggins, next week this is going to happen, go ahead and break the story, I'm going to do it. Like, so
Yep.
I get it, and it's what people don't understand. Like I said, it's not a knock on this job or those people, but this is a sport, the journalism side of it anyways, where just like a fighter who's getting paid little to nothing, the guys covering it are. You know, I heard something.
Yep, that's a great point. I agree.
I haven't brought this up, and I don't know if anybody watches the BKFC post-fight. You still feel like when I covered my first UFC, like actually in the press row, it was weird to see like the hierarchy of how it goes. It was like, all right, MMA fighting, you have a question. All right, now MMA junkie, you have a question. All right, nobody else. All right, cool. No, I have a question. And they'd be like, oh, someone else is here asking questions. Bare knuckle, they're still kind of dealing with that. People kind of holding back. And I think what it is that it's so violent.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there this past weekend to watch Pages.
Oh, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Oh,
nice.
And it's very like intense because afterwards you just, even as a journalist, you're just like, what did I just watch? You know, there was a fight in the crowd. I don't know if they showed that on TV or not. I think it was during Lieben's fight or during Dat's fight. Like, there was a huge fight. You see the dude, like, get punched. He goes running, and I'm sitting all the way across the arena, not watching the fight anymore because I see these guys in the crowd. But if you watch the BKFC presser, they go, anybody have any questions for Lieben? And I don't think it was that nobody had a question. I think it was they're like, holy shit, it's Chris Lieben. I get to ask him a question. So somebody asked him, like, hey, what are you going to do after BKFC? And I was like, well, he just gave a post-fight speech and said exactly what he did. So I'm like sitting, and I'm standing on a chair, keep in mind. Nobody can see this. Like, there's no footage of this anywhere, but they had us spaced out. And when you got in there, I just stood on a chair, so I had a better vantage point. And I just looked, and you can't hear me ask the question unless you really dial in. But I was like, you know, I raised my hand. I'm like, for Lieben, I'm like, talk us through, like, the arc of your first fight to your last fight. But right before I asked the question, like, right before, somebody goes, wow, the media really sucks tonight. And I was like, oh. And then I realized, I was like, it's because people were asking stupid questions. And that's upsetting. But I asked him, I was like, talk about the arc of your first fight to your last fight. You know, that journey of how you felt. And he's like, well, here's what's so funny is that what I heard him say and what he said were two different things. Because what I heard him say was that I was scared as shit the first time. I was scared as shit tonight. And I watched it and he goes, I was scared the first time. I was scared tonight. I was like, oh, I guess I added the shit. But, you know, you sit in those post-fight pressers and you're just like, you've got all these questions. And then when it comes time, you're just like, I don't want to be the guy who asked a dumb question. And I know we've all been there, but it was just that comment, whoever made it. So whoever's out there, if you heard this, reach out to me. We'll talk. Because I want to know what you do. What questions you asked that night that you can just say, well, dude, you guys suck. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there, but...
Okay. So no, it's true. I mean, like, dude, I last week, you know, I've been scoring the fights for MMA decisions on and off for about since it started, so like almost 10 years ago.
Oh wow!
For a few different days, yeah, on and off, and then I took a break for a while because I was like, there's not a lot of benefit. Like, it's educational. It's helping, I think, the community if I, you know, give the score, and if the other media has their scores, but it's not like I was just doing it. You know what I mean? As a volunteer, right? So like last week, I guess I had a bad scorecard. I mean, quite frankly, it probably was a bad scorecard. I have to watch the fight again. I don't really want to watch the fight again, but it is what it is.
Which fight?
I think it was the Brad Tavares fight from a few. It was a really boring fight where he was getting shoved against the fence by Carlos Jr.
Yeah.
Like I didn't watch it closely enough, quite frankly, and I really shouldn't have even scored it because I was doing some other stuff at the time, but I did anyways. And I got shit on by people, and I was like surprised because like I think generally my scores are like quite good, but in this case, I'll fully admit, I guess it was a bad card because I was one of the few people that had it that way. But the point is, it was the same as you, and I'm like, I'm not even getting fucking paid to do this. Like I'm like, I messaged any decisions right away, and I'm like, hey Chris, the guy who runs it, I'm like, I'm gonna take a break for a while, man. I'm like, this is real. I really don't need to be, harassed on social media for something that's for free. Like it's not even. I wasn't getting paid pennies for it. Like even now, bro. I got, and this is not a knock for any of the outlets I work for because I really appreciate the opportunity to write about the sport because some people don't even get that chance.
Yeah.
But I'm writing as much as I can, and it's still not where I want to be. You know what I mean? So, and I'm trying my best, and it's like I've come to that realization now where I'm like James, who's like again a good friend of mine, where he was like for the longest time, I want to get with ESPN, you know what I mean? Like, or I want to get with MMA fighting or whatever, and just be that one guy, a one man show.
Yeah.
And like those are not, they don't have positions, so I'm like him now, and I'm like I'm trying to get as much work as I can, and just push it all together and do as much as I can. I think that might be unfortunately the way. Like I feel like it's not what they told us in school, man. It's not what they taught us. Like you don't just. Like I worked at the Toronto Star too for years, which is one of the biggest newspapers here. Not for years. I worked there for 2 years. And I really wanted that. Like that was halfway through during my MMA career, and I was like, I want to work here, and I want to work and work for this big newspaper and stay here for the rest. So I'm 55, 60 years old.
Yeah, right.
That didn't work out because they don't have full, and they just laid off a bunch of people. I think so. It's like there is not that full time. That gig, but the point is like I see the comments by fans, and I think a lot of the time the criticism is warranted in many ways, but I feel like a lot of the time they need to be a little bit more sympathetic, because I think a lot of MMA I don't think they care anyways, but I think a lot of MMA writers, a lot of fans probably wish they had their job, but they don't realize that it's not as glamorous as it might look. Like I think for some, like for guys like me, like. I can't remember the last time I went to an event. It was obviously before COVID, but like there's guys that are in these glamour positions that travel the world.
Yeah.
And what they do is interviews. I mean, that doesn't seem that hard to me, but when you're on the grind, like I work 7 days a week, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's hard physically because it's not obviously, but mentally, and it's like, I got to be in the ball, dude. And it's like, there's no, like, it's not like, again, the whole industry is different. Like I don't have like necessarily like an editor is going to like go through every word in my thing and like fix it for me. I'd like to be like that, but like I gotta pump it out quick.
Mm-hmm.
If there's news out there, it's got to get out there quick. So it's just a very different business.
Well, and I kind of want to go back to what you said because you brought up something that I don't think I've talked about either. So a few weeks ago, I think it was right before the Conor fight. Lauren Murphy had tweeted, some outlet had tweeted like, the only fighter to have won in 3 different weight classes and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then Lauren Murphy just tweeted a picture that was him getting choked out at 45, 55, and 70. And I retweeted it, and dude, I have never in 11 years, I've never gotten the hate that I got.
I believe you.
And it was like, well, he's like, that guy would fuck you up, you fat piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. Look at you, 2-stripe Twinkie. Like, just whatever. And I'm just like, I'm looking at all these accounts, and they were created like a month ago.
That's funny. Yo, I'll be right back. I go to the bathroom. I got an emergency.
Oh my gosh.
I know. During on air. I don't have an hour left with you. I gotta go right now. I can't hold it half an hour more. Maybe 1 second.
Well, guys, this is the uncut version. We're just gonna talk about Adam while he's not here. Instead, we'll talk about the Bellator bracket. Anybody else see that? Rumble, Romero, Machida, Bader, Phil Davis, Nemkov, Corey Anderson, and the last guy whose name I can't say for the life of me. So, I hope you're all enjoying this interlude. It's now to take the time to thank our sponsors. We've got EpicJitstees.com still repping this amazing shirt. I love seeing all my friends wearing it. I've got Bertzo's Bake Shop over there in Orlando for all your sweet tooth needs. I've got La Barba Cubana or El Barba Cubana, depending on which site, for the amazing beard care. And then good old Fat Boy Jiu-Jitsu, who's got the coolest Combat Night shirts and custom geese. So definitely go check those guys out. And really appreciate all your support. And truly, thank you all for watching. And yeah, I've run out of things to say, which is a first. So stay tuned, guys. Moment of silence. For all those fans who wanted to watch Bellator on Paramount. Yeah, Yakshimi Radov. Yeah. That's not going to be fun. I'm hoping he has a shorter name for the fight. Because it's definitely not going to be easy for them to rattle that off 100 times during the fight. So, Corey Anderson, if you're listening, make that a short fight. The announcers and every writer will probably thank you for that. So. Trying to find the nice words that those people were saying about me. Stop thinking you're an MMA fanatic. You're just a Sato with an MMA account, making other fans feel less superior because they don't know every square inch of the roster. Be happy there are new eyes on the sport, you bitter cow. Let's see. What else we got? I think that guy deleted a bunch of his comments because they're all gone. Black belt and eating hamburgers, Yankee idiot. My fat ass wouldn't last 15 seconds with anyone in all three of those weight classes.
Hey, I heard about that.
It's alright. Everybody's going to be really confused. Everybody's going to be really confused. So
I know, my bad, guys. Sorry, nature called there.
I started reading the tweets.
Okay.
And then I said, I gave Corey Anderson a shout out because I was like, the guy he's fighting, Yagshi Muradov. Yep. I'm like, the announcers are probably going to be like, please end this fight early. Please end
I got to be honest, when they announced that today, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? But apparently he's actually really good, from what I've heard.
Well, and everybody thought the same way about Nemkov.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's just because of his name, right? I got to be honest, when they announced it, because they were like, Corey Anderson. And I'm like, okay, he'll probably fight Machida or something, or maybe for the belt. Then they're like, versus this guy. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And I thought for a second, they're going to book all these guys in squash matches. They're going to have Rumble fight some random dude you never heard of, too. And then, of course, they actually matched up, I think, the tournament pretty, like, it looks awesome, right?
Yeah, you've got Romero and Rumble, which I've got a buddy doing a podcast, like a show right now, who said earlier he doesn't agree with that matchup right away because he said they should have been on opposite sides of the bracket. And now, while I agree with that, if Romero gets beat, if Rumble gets beat, and that match never happens, it kills it. So for me, putting them together right off the bat, great idea. Machida and Bader, I thought was probably an interesting matchup just because you watch that first fight and Bader just got tired of waiting. So I think that fight could be a lot different, but Bader's looked amazing over the past couple of years, other than that loss to Nemkov. And he's still holding the heavyweight belt, which a lot of people have a problem with. So looking at some of those matchups, I'm like, and then Phil Davis fighting Nemkov, I'm like,
he gets the rematch.
So that
he beat him before, right? Didn't he beat him, or did Phil lose that? I can't remember. Did he beat him?
I don't even remember. Oh, Phil.
I know it was like a split decision, like kind of like a weird fight. Who was the winner? Yeah, Nemkov actually won by split, 2018.
Oh yeah,
so
it was forgettable. I'm I'm a little concerned about the move to Showtime.
Yeah.
Well, just because they're just making it harder and harder for a casual to watch the sport.
It's like I don't even know where it is in Canada now, because for the longest time we had a few stations that had it, and then last year when they went to the Thursdays, we didn't have it at all. And it was impossible to watch. You'd have to find another medium to watch it. Now, even now, they did announce it, and I know Cole Sheldon, who I do a podcast with, he had asked them a few times, like, "Hey, you're going to announce Canada?" They haven't said a thing. And even in Europe, they're like, "Oh, we'll let you guys know." Like, dude, we're an afterthought. But from what I do know, I think Showtime's a premium station, right, down there. Okay, so you have to pay what, like $5 more a month or something?
$5 or $10, depending on the package. But I'm like, what bothered me the most now is that everything's going to a Paramount Plus streaming or Disney Plus or Discovery.
What do you think of that, man? I'm not a huge fan of it. What do you think?
I think it's getting to be too much. Before it made sense. And it's like, now it's like, so I have a cable bill and this, and I'm like, if you really add up everything you're watching, it doesn't work out. Like, I picked up, I think, a year of subscription of Hulu on Black Friday because it was like $2 a month. You know how many times I've watched it since Black Friday? None. None. It's the same thing with Netflix. I only had Netflix when Stranger Things was on, because after that, I was like, well, I can't find anything to watch. Amazon has just about everything I want, but, realistically, I feel like it's a little too repetitive with Bellator going to Showtime of the Strikeforce days. It's like we went a full circle. You've got Scott Coker on Showtime with Fedor fighting for him. Like, it's literally Strikeforce 3.0, and I'm calling it 3.0 because it was 1.0 when he ran it. It was 2.0 when the UFC bought it and kind of did that weird fight with Ed Herman, and I think it was Jacare.
Yeah, he went over for a fight. Yep.
So, on a side note, I got to hear Ed Herman's name this weekend. Because Chris Lieben said Ed Herman was there for my first fight. He cornered me for my first fight, and Ed Herman was here tonight for my last fight. And I thought,
he was there. Really nice. That's awesome.
Which I didn't know. I didn't see him, and it's so funny because you see all these fighters walking around, the arena. There's not 100 guys around him. There's not a bunch of people. Like Sam Shoemaker, if you watch any of the BKFC, dude looks like a regular guy walking around with a baseball hat. And I even said something to him, like I could have been there and been like, "Oh, let me get an interview." I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, "You just blended right in." And he goes, "That's what I do." Just walked away, and I'm like, "That's a fighter." And it goes back to, I said who my first interview was. Who was your first interview ever?
My first interview?
Like,
well, okay, technically it would be the one I posted on. I posted a picture on my Twitter yesterday. I was like, "Who is this? Does anyone know who it is?" I don't know if you saw that.
I think, yeah.
Okay, so it's GSP, right? It was on TV, and then I'm behind him interviewing, and I go, "Who is it?" And then one guy got right. It's Claude Patrick. That'd be the first guy.
Oh God.
He fought in the UFC. He's a Canadian fighter.
Yeah.
I think he fought like 4 or 5 times. Let me double check. Like,
his name's Claude. He's definitely Canadian.
He's from Toronto. He might retire off a win. No, he actually went 3-1 in the UFC. He hasn't fought in 10 years. Oh my God. Can you believe that? His last fight was 10 years ago. In Toronto, he lost a split decision to Brian Bad Boy Ebersol, the guy at the Arrow, the sheriff. Holy fuck, that's a trip, man. Dude, that's how long I've been covering the sport. That's how long, man. Like about that era. And you're even longer than me, maybe. So it's crazy, right?
Brian Ebersol, one of the only people to get a $60,000 bonus instead of a $50,000.
Pete Hallman, right? Yeah, when the short. I remember I was at my buddy's house. We were like, "What the hell is he wearing?" Like, that was so ridiculous.
Well,
now we have to.
But going all the way back, I mean, go back to UFC 1, and it gets brought up all the time. But you look at Thule, you look at Art Jimerson coming out the one boxing glove, and I have to say it like that because what is he coming out? Rampage said it. He was like, "What's he coming out with one boxing glove? Like, what's he doing?" It was just so funny the way he said it, and it's just because it was that ridiculous. We've gone from a sport where ears were getting bitten, teeth were getting kicked out, people were trying to throw somebody out of the cage. You had professional wrestlers going to MMA, coming back, going back and forth. The Shamrock, even Dan Severn for a while, his WWF run was terrible. Listen. My buddies will talk wrestling all day long, and it's so funny that you brought that up because as a kid, that was what we watched. Like my dad and I would watch WCW. We both love Sting. I love that Sting is back.
He's the man. Oh, he's back in AEW,
Yeah.
right? AEW or whatever. Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's
I
like
love
I
it,
don't I can't watch it anymore like I used to. You know, as a kid, like my defining moment, and this is gonna make me sound like a terrible person, but I found out that SmackDown, Thursday night SmackDown, was actually filmed on Tuesdays, and
Broke your heart?
I found a website that had all the results.
Okay.
And
What website?
Oh gosh, this was.
I used to go on all of them back in the day.
Oh man, I don't remember, but I know I used to bet people like lunch.
Oh really? That's awesome. That's so funny.
And they'd be like, "How do you know?" And I'd get a couple wrong, just to be like, "I'm not, perfect here."
Dude, I remember the day my dad told me it was fake. I felt like someone told me Santa Claus wasn't real.
Wait, Santa Claus isn't real?
I'm like, what do you mean it's fake? Actually, I remember watching. I was that guy Mark Henry.
Yeah.
Like D'Lo, those guys, D-Generation X, I think.
Yeah.
Way back. I remember we're watching a match, and I'm like, man, how is this guy like so big, and like this other guy's beating him up, and my dad's like, because it's fake. I'm like, what do you mean it's fake? That was so long ago. Probably like, maybe 10. I was like, this is not fake. That was so dumb back then.
And at the same time, we get told it's fake, and then when we were 10, I believe it was 98 when Undertaker threw Mankind off the cage. And I was like, that wasn't fake.
Classic.
Like, tooth up through the...
I know.
I'm an adult now. I've watched Frank Mir break arms. I've seen Anderson Silva's leg broken. The late Corey Hill, when he had his leg broken. I've seen some disgusting things. That still bothers me to no end, watching him get thrown off, because none of that was supposed to happen.
I know. I remember too, man. It's been a while.
And it doesn't have the same feel for me anymore. And I feel like now that camera work is even better, like the high definition, it's really easy to spot when something goes here instead of hitting directly. And they're trying to play it off. They're like, look at that big boot. I'm like, you mean the one he didn't get hit with at all?
Yep.
But I think that's anybody who really liked wrestling could transition into appreciating MMA because of the aspects of it.
Yep.
Looking at something, and I know this is a one-time instance, the DJ Ray Borg fight, where he does the German suplex into an armbar in midair, and you're like, that had to be fake. That had to be fake.
Yep.
But it isn't. So what I wanted to spend some time talking about is actually the MMA.
Did you see my message, by the way? Did you see it? I just sent you a private message. You see it?
Oh.
Just tell me if you got that one. Is that it? Did you see it?
Yeah.